Good morning, students. Today I am going to teach you a very interesting topic, that is the Cold War era from 1947 to 1991. It can be easily taught in an interesting manner with the help of mind map. You can see the Cold War era, what it is, how it led to the emergence of two power blocks, the Eastern and the Western alliances, which led to an alliance system, which further led to the formation of NAM, non-aligned movement. What was the role of India during the Cold War, and various other questions which we are going to study in this chapter. First, we should know that what is Cold War era and when it started. When two bombs were dropped at Hiroshima and Nagasaki on 6th and 9th of August, it led to the end of the Second World War. But at the same time, it led to the rise of two major power centers of the world, that is USA and USSR, which became so powerful that they started having rivalry against each other. The first picture is depicting American soldiers raising the US flag during the Battle of Tsushima, Japan, on 23rd Feb 1945, once they were victorious. On the other hand, Soviet soldiers are raising the USSR flag on the Reichstag building, Parliament of Germany, in Berlin in 1945 May. Thus, these two countries became very, very powerful after the World War got over. But it was not a full-fledged war. It was more of an ideological struggle. What does it mean? The Cold War is referred to tensions and a series of confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union, backed by their respective allies. Fortunately, however, it never escalated into a hot or a shooting war. These two powers avoided a global war. The Cold War was not simply a matter of power rivalry, of military alliances, and of the balance of power. It was accompanied by a real ideological conflict as well. The Western Alliance, which was headed by US, it represented the ideology of liberal democracy and capitalism, while Eastern Alliance, headed by Soviet Union, was committed to the ideology of socialism and communism. This led to the emergence of two power blocs, USA and USSR, which were totally different from each other. USA believed that profit is the main aim, let capitalism survive, and they wanted that democracy should be there. On the other hand, USSR never wanted any profit earning, they wanted welfare. They wanted that the rule should be of Communist Party. There should not be that much of freedom or liberty given to the people. While Cold War was an outcome of emergence of US and USSR as two superpowers rivaled to each other, it was also understood that the world cannot have one more world war, as both the superpowers were possessing nuclear weapons, which can be devastating. It could lead to mass destruction and death, as the whole world has seen the destruction caused by the dropping of the bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Thus, both the power blocs tried to avoid the war at all cost, which is known as logic of deterrence. It means, or it suggests, that after the World War II, both sides realized that nuclear war will destroy both the nations. Thus, none of them will be winner at the end. They realized that war is not a solution. The deterrence relationship prevents war, but not the rivalry between powers. They were not having any war, but the rivalry continued. The military features of the Cold War can be summarized into these 2 points. The first one, the two superpowers and their allies were expected to behave as rational and responsible actors. They should know fighting war will be massively destructive. At the same time, they should have the responsibility of not indulging into war because it will lead to mass destruction. Thus, the two superpowers were keen on avoiding the war. But on the other hand, they wanted to prove powerful than each other, which led to expanding of their spheres of influence in different parts of the world. Thus, the whole world got divided into two power blocks. As their rivalry increased, the two superpowers were keen on expanding their spheres of influence in different parts of the world. Thus, the world got sharply divided into two alliance systems. One is the Eastern Alliance headed by USSR and the Western Alliance headed by USA. The smaller states in the alliance used the link to the superpowers for their own purposes. They got the promise of protection, weapons, and economic aid against their local rivals, mostly regional neighbors with whom they had rivalry. The alliance system led by the two superpowers therefore threatened to divide the entire world into two camps. This division happened first in Europe. Most countries of Western Europe sided with the US and those of Eastern Europe joined the Soviet camps. That is why these are also known as Western and Eastern Alliance. The question that comes into the mind of everyone is that these were already superpowers. Why they need allies? The superpowers, although were very powerful, but still they needed allies so that they can get vital resources such as oil and minerals. They also wanted territories from where the superpowers could launch their weapons and troops. They wanted a location from where they could spy on each other. And they wanted economic support so that they can get aid for their military expenses. Thus, they wanted loyal allies who would side with them for winning the war of ideas, as well as that liberal democracy and capitalism was better than socialism or vice versa can be proved to the entire world. Thus, how rightly Winston Churchill has said that there was an iron curtain drawn on the surface of the world, from Saturn to in the Balkans to Trieste in the Adriatic. An iron curtain has descended across the continent. Behind that line lies the ancient capitals of Central and Eastern Europe. Once the world got divided into two power blocks, that is Eastern and Western, they started formalizing alliance system during this period. The Western Alliance was formalized into an organization which is known as NATO. Full form is North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It came into existence in April month in 1949, which consisted of 12 states. It declared that armed attack on any one of them in Europe or North America would be regarded as an attack on all of them. Each one of them will help each other. They all promised. You can see the symbol, it is a symbol of the NATO countries. Toward the eastern side also, the communist countries also formalized an alliance which came to be known as Eastern Alliance. It was created in 1955 and its principal function was to counter NATO forces in Europe so that both can make themselves quite strong enough
Now, what about the remaining countries which were there in the East and the Southeast Asian? Even they were also pulled together into an organization which came to be known as CETO and CENTO. In East and Southeast Asia and in the West Asia, the United States built an alliance system which was called as CETO, that is Southeastern Asian Treaty Organization, and CENTO, which is known as Central Treaty Organization. You can see the symbols over there and the number of nations which joined. Thus, the whole world got divided into two power alliance system. Soviet, as very few nations were with Soviet, so they wanted to make very good relations with their neighbors, that is North Vietnam, North Korea, and even far off friends like Iraq. Thus, the Cold War threatened to divide the world into two alliances which dominated the whole world, and it was dominated by two superpowers, that is USA and USSR. So now we are going to continue the second video, which will be taking to the height of the Cold War, that is the Cuban Missile Crisis. Thank you.